this issue that Donald Trump fears so much. We offer this question of the land. I don't know what Donald Trump has to do with South African land, because he's never been here. And he must keep his America, we will keep our South Africa. That is what he must do. South Africa is our land. South Africa belongs to all the people who live here in South Africa. It does not belong to Donald Trump. He can keep his America.
What happens when a nation finally decides that enough is enough? What happens when the most industrialized country on the African continent suddenly stands up, bold, unshaken, and unapologetic, and slams the door in the face of one of the world's biggest superpowers? What happens when South Africa, the land of gold, platinum, chrome, manganese, diamonds, and rare earth wealth, suddenly tells America, it's over. Pack your bags. Leave. All American mining companies are shut down, effective immediately. Shockwaves hit Washington. Investors panicked. Diplomats scrambled. The global mining industry froze. Because this wasn't just a policy decision. This was a message from Africa to the world. And today on Eazicho Africa, we re-diving deep into how South Africa reached this historic breaking point, why American miners were kicked out instantly, the global consequences, and the new alliances reshaping the future of African resources. Buckle up. This is the story America never thought would be written. But South Africa just wrote it in bold letters. The announcement didn't come with negotiation. No long speeches. No diplomatic sugarcoating. No waiting period. Just one decisive government directive. All American mining companies operating in South Africa must cease operations immediately. Phones rang nonstop in Washington. Journalists rushed to break the story. Corporate executives were stunned. Why? Because for decades, American mining companies operated in South Africa with comfort, almost untouchable, making billions from gold, cobalt, lithium, platinum group metals, and other strategic minerals the world desperately needs. But the shutdown wasn't a random act. It was a breaking point, a boiling point, and the culmination of years of rising tensions, exploitation accusations, and increasing global competition for Africa's mineral wealth. To understand why this shutdown happened, you must understand the history behind it. From as far back as the early 1900s, American and European mining giants controlled South African gold, South African platinum, South African manganese, South African diamonds, South African chromium, South African rare earth minerals. They didn't just extract minerals. They extracted wealth, influence, and control. They shaped contracts. They shaped pricing. They shaped export routes. They shaped the narrative that South Africa needed them. But every year, South Africa grew more aware, more conscious, more assertive, more confident. The global shift toward nationalism, resource protection, and sovereignty, seen in countries like Indonesia, DRC, Zambia, and even Nigeria, ignited a fire. African countries were waking up. They were asking, why do foreign companies make billions while our people still struggle? South Africa, with the largest mineral reserves on the continent, had the loudest voice. And eventually, that voice exploded. There were 5 major triggers that led to the instant shutdown of American miners. Many American-run mines paid low taxes, low royalties, low community investment, high repatriation of profits back to America. South Africa kept the land. America kept the money. For years, South Africa has been pushing hard to control who mines its minerals, where minerals are processed, who benefits, how profits are shared, how much stays in the economy. America wasn't ready to adapt. There were increasing accusations that American mining firms were interfering with local politics, local regulations, community protests, government reforms, local mining ownership laws. South Africa called it economic manipulation. South Africa's closest partners became China, India, Russia, Brazil, Middle Eastern investors, African regional allies. These countries offered better deals, higher investments, local processing, shared ownership, infrastructure development. America wasn't offering that. South African leaders were angered by sanctions threats, trade pressure, political interference, unfavorable visa rules, negative narratives, U.S. criticism of BRICS expansion. Washington's attempt to contain African sovereignty. South Africa responded, "You cannot disrespect us and still mine our minerals." And so the shutdown came. Many people think it was sudden. In reality, South Africa had prepared for months. Here's how it unfolded. Officials quietly reviewed every American mining license. Environmental, tax, labor, and ownership violations were documented. Key minerals were declared critical to national security, giving the government full control. A government directive ordered all American mines to stop extraction. Security forces protected the sites to avoid sabotage or illegal extraction. Mining rights were reassigned to South African companies and BRICS-aligned partners. The world woke up to a shock. South Africa had taken back full control of its mineral destiny. America's response was immediate. Within hours, the State Department demanded clarification. Congress called emergency meetings. U.S. mining CEOs lobbied the White House. American media accused South Africa of aligning with China and Russia. Analysts predicted global gold and platinum price spikes. Washington threatened trade consequences. But South Africa didn't flinch. For the first time, South Africa wasn't begging America for trade access. South Africa was dictating the terms. It was a moment of power, a moment of sovereignty, a moment of African courage. South Africa's government released a statement that shook global politics. "Our resources are for the benefit of our people first. No nation has a right to exploit Africa under the disguise of partnership." Powerful, unapologetic, unforgettably African. This message echoed across Africa. In Namibia, in Angola, in Zimbabwe, in Zambia, in the DRC, in Tanzania, in Mozambique, countries asked one question. If South Africa can kick out American miners, why can't we reclaim our resources too? Africa's resource revolution had begun. The shutdown didn't just affect South Africa. It shook the entire global supply chain. South Africa controls 80% of global platinum. America's supply chain went into panic mode. South African gold mines closing to American companies caused massive uncertainty. Lithium, cobalt, manganese, rare earths, now flowing toward India, China, Middle East, Russia, Africa-to-Africa trade blocs. This was not just economic. It was geopolitical. America's decades-old influence crumbled within hours. The shutdown aligned perfectly with BRICS' long-term plans. Global de-dollarization, resource ownership, African industrialization, South-South cooperation, new supply chain maps. South Africa had taken a bold stand, and the world felt it. Almost immediately, new companies stepped in. South Africa awarded mining rights to South African black-owned mining groups, state-owned mineral corporations, Indian mining technology partners, Chinese processing firms, Middle Eastern investors, African regional mining alliances. For the first time in decades, local communities became shareholders. Government revenue increased. Local processing plants were built. Jobs stayed in the country. This was not a mining shutdown. This was a mining transformation. South Africa's move is not just a national move. It's continental. It tells Africa, you can take back your land. You can control your resources. You can choose your partners. You can stand against superpowers. It tells the world, Africa is awake. Africa is confident. Africa is being exploited. Whether it's cobalt in DRC, lithium in Zimbabwe, oil in Angola, gas in Mozambique, rare earths in Tanzania, gold in Ghana, Africa is saying, this time, we make the rules. And South Africa has become the symbol of that new era. Now that American miners are gone, South Africa has new plans. No more exporting raw minerals. South Africa wants refineries, smelters, battery plants, steel plants, EV manufacturing, energy storage systems, all built on African soil. South Africa, China, and India are planning shared mining ventures, shared processing facilities, shared mineral stockpiles, shared industrial technology. South Africa is working with other African nations to create unified pricing, unified regulations, unified export routes, joint ventures. For the first time, Africa may control global mineral pricing. South Africa is diversifying away from American domination. Its new partners include India, China, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Russia, Brazil, African Union blocs. A new world order is forming, and Africa is finally at the table. This shutdown is more than business. It is more than politics. It is psychological, symbolic, historic. Africa is rebuilding its confidence. Africa is rewriting the rules. Africa is claiming its place. For decades, Africa was told, "You need us. We own the technology. We control the markets. You can't survive without us." South Africa just proved they were wrong. America fears losing access to strategic minerals, influence in Africa, supply chain security, industrial leverage, geopolitical dominance. Europe fears China gaining full control over Africa's minerals. China and India see opportunity. Russia sees strategic advantage. But the real winner? Africa. With Africa, ***. South Africa did what many thought was impossible. It shut down all American mining companies, instantly. No hesitation. No apology. No fear. This wasn't a weakness. This wasn't revenge. This wasn't chaos. This was power. This was sovereignty. This was Africa choosing itself first. This was a warning to foreign exploiters. This was a spark for a continental awakening. As global powers scramble to understand what just happened, Africa is finally stepping forward, not as a victim, not as a resource colony, but as a global player with its own voice and its own vision. And here on Africa, we'll keep telling these stories, stories of African power, African pride, African sovereignty, and African victory. The era of silence is over. The era of exploitation is collapsing. A new era has begun. Africa rising. Africa chooses itself. Africa leading the future. And this time, the world cannot ignore it.